I'm Adam Todd, and welcome to Classroom Dynamics, a teacher podcast. I've always believed that the best way to engage students in a 21st century classroom is to immerse them with the transformative tools that will empower each and every one of them to excel in the world that awaits. My goal is to ignite the spark that propels you and your students in an advanced tomorrow, and your journey into that future starts right now. Classroom Dynamics is supported by Logitech. As education continues to evolve, so does Logitech Education, your partner in content creation for the classroom. With Logitech's cutting-edge technology, students not only learn but also become content creators. Whether it's in person or online, Logitech's tools are designed to inspire educators and learners alike. Capture every educational moment in stunning detail and edit, produce, and share your creative journey with ease. Logitech Education, inspiring the next generation of creators. For more, visit logitech.com/education, transforming classrooms one innovation at a time. Introducing the Zone Learn wired headset from Logitech, the headset that's designed for learning and built for schools. Here are a few reasons why Zone Learn is the best headset option for today's students and schools. It's optimized to fit smaller heads with features like soft ear pads, a cushion headband, even weight distribution and micro-articulating ear cups that move in all directions. The audio driver is engineered for speech intelligibility, so spoken lessons come through crystal clear. And the movable boom mic is designed for better vocal clarity. It's durably designed to withstand frequent cleaning and constant wear and tear. My favorite aspect of the Zone Learn headset is that it's fully customizable and sustainable for both the environment and school budgets. The swappable ear pads come in over-ear and on-ear options. The interchangeable cables come in USB-A, USB-C, and audio jack options. This means that the ear pads and cables can be swapped out without replacing the entire headset. Plus, the Zone Learn is backed by a 3-year warranty, making it a smart, long-term investment for schools. Get your students into the learning zone with an elevated headset experience. Learn more at logitech.com/zonelearn. Are you ready to take your edtech adventures to the next level while making a positive impact on the planet? Introducing Higher Ground Gear, where we're digging deeper and aiming higher towards sustainability. At Higher Ground, we're committed to doing better. That's why we meticulously source our materials to minimize environmental impact. Our protective cases are designed to last with replaceable parts and easily repairable designs. But that's not all. We use recycled woven fabrics and eco-friendly coatings to keep excess plastics out of landfills and oceans. With Higher Ground Gear, you're not just getting high-quality products, you're making a difference. Join us in our mission to reduce environmental impact while enjoying durable, eco-conscious gear. Choose Higher Ground Gear, and let's make a positive change together. For more, visit hggear.com/about-higher-ground. Welcome to Classroom Dynamics, the podcast where we get into the exciting world of technology and education. Hi everybody, I'm your host Adam Todd, and welcome to a special Earth Day edition of Classroom Dynamics. Today we're focusing on the crucial intersection of education, technology, and sustainability, highlighting some of the educational products provided by Logitech that promote longevity and eco-consciousness in the classroom. Logitech stands out not only as a leader in video conferencing hardware and consumer electronics, but also as a trailblazer in sustainability. It shouldn't surprise you that a technology giant like Logitech is taking a stand on how their products impact the environment through initiatives like Next Life Plastics, where they utilize post-consumer recycled plastics, and their dedication to incorporating recycled fabric and low-carbon aluminum into their products. Logitech is actively shaping a more environmentally friendly future, especially for the classroom. Of significant note is Logitech's commitment to transparency, exemplified by their introduction of carbon impact labels on their products. This groundbreaking step aims to offer clarity regarding the environmental footprint of each purchase decision. Remarkably, Logitech aims to extend this initiative across their entire product range by 2025, setting a precedent in the industry. Now, being conscious of the planet is quite the hot topic, where most people feel that every day should be Earth Day. And today, we have the privilege of speaking with Grace Lee, Logitech's Head of Education Product Design, and Gaurav Bradu, the Head of Education Product Portfolio at Logitech, to explore their sustainability efforts in the classroom in greater depth. In our conversation, Grace and Gaurav will shed light on some of Logitech's products that are made for the educational space, which are having a positive impact on the physical world around us. One such product is the innovative Zone Learn headset, a prime example of sustainable design and educational technology with its swappable parts and upgradable ear pads and cables, not to mention a robust 3-year warranty that it carries. Designed for durability and endurance, the Zone Learn headset is engineered to last longer in classrooms, reducing the need for frequent replacements and keeping electronic waste out of landfills. So whether you're a student, educator, tech enthusiast, or environmentalist, this episode is a must listen. Stay tuned for an enlightening discussion on how education and sustainability with Logitech's educational products are the right choice for you. We'll be right back. Are you a dedicated educator searching for fresh and engaging resources to inspire your students? Look no further than Highly Motivated on Teachers Pay Teachers. Discover a treasure trove of easy-to-use lesson plans, vibrant visuals, and interactive activities designed to captivate young minds and ignite their love for learning. Unlock the potential within your classroom with Highly Motivated, from differentiated lap books to test prep passages on a multitude of topics. Our wide range of materials cater to most elementary and middle school grade levels. Join the community of passionate teachers who have already transformed their classrooms. Visit Highly Motivated on Teachers Pay Teachers and get ready to inspire, motivate, and empower your students like never before. Highly Motivated on Teachers Pay Teachers, where knowledge meets inspiration. She's the head of education product design, and he's the head of education product portfolio at Logitech, and they're both helping to pave the way to sustainability in an industry that's been known for leaving a rather large carbon footprint behind. It's my pleasure to welcome Grace Lee and Gaurav Bradu to Classroom Dynamics. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Excited to be here.
So, more and more people feel that every day should be Earth Day, that it shouldn't just be, one date on the calendar where we bring attention to the impacts that humans have on our environment. So, Grace, let's start with you. Why is it important for Logitech to start in the classroom with its products that are sustainably friendly?
So I think it's important to Logitech because sustainability is core to Logitech's values. So we believe in designing for people and the planet. So no matter where people use our products, we want to ensure that we're keeping a sustainable mindset, which includes the classrooms that our products are in. We also know that students of today are going to be the adults of tomorrow, and they will be inheriting this earth. And then so it just makes sense for us to push for sustainability in ways that we can build with these young students while they grow. We hope that building products that are sustainable and easy to use in classrooms will build Logitech fans that will also value us in the future. And making things sustainable is also consistent with considering longevity of use and being mindful of schools' budgets, so we can extend investment schools are making into the technology. It just makes sense to tackle all these things together. All this to say, we are figuring this out. We know it's important, so we're committed to doing so in the classroom. But because it's our core value of ours, we live and breathe this every day at Logitech. We treat every day like it's Earth Day.
Yeah, and it's funny. I think a lot of kids these days are more aware of environmental, problems, e-waste, recycling. I think more than we were when we were kids. They're seeing it even in their lunchrooms with composting programs in schools and recycling programs now in schools. So let me hit the two of you with some staggering numbers regarding e-waste, which I find amazing. The International Renewable Energy Agency has projected that given the current rate of accumulation, the world will have, amassed about 78 million metric tons of e-waste by 2050. And according to the worldcounts.com website, 12 million tons of electronics were thrown away in just this past year alone. And we're only in April. We still have another 8 months to go in 2024. So if you think about that too, only about 12.5% of e-waste is actually recycled. So the production growth of technology versus recycling and sustainability practices are way out of sync. So with those staggering data points said, let's go over some of the environmental benefits of Logitech's Next Life Plastics initiative, which I find amazing that you guys are doing. How does that play a role in the products that are used in the classroom?
Yeah, so our goal is to use Next Life plastics across our entire portfolio, and we are making pretty significant progress towards that goal. So as of March of 2023, last year, 58% of Logitech products already included like Next Life plastics, and it was used across all of our product categories, which includes mice, keyboards, headsets, webcams, speakers, and our video conferencing systems. And at Logitech, we are investing heavily into our Design for Sustainability program, which empowers our engineering, product, and design teams to then accelerate our transition to low carbon materials and designs across our entire portfolio. And the goal of this program is to make each new generation of products that much more durable and repairable. So in the case of classrooms, less things are thrown away and they are kept out of landfill. And also just making our products more recyclable. And this will help ultimately lower the carbon impact of these products on the environment. Our color, materials, and finish design and engineering program also play a huge role in determining the sustainability of our products. And this means we're committed to looking at how we can innovate the materials and processes so that they still look and perform well. So we're not compromising anything there while still being really good for the environment. And other than plastics, we're also thinking about sustainability in our other materials like fabrics and our metals, and also how our products are put together. So we're designing products in a way it can be mechanically fitted together where possible, so we can reduce things like glue. And we're trying to minimize the amount of parts, so we just reduce waste overall. And at a classroom purchase at scale, classrooms are purchasing for all their students, or the school's thinking about all their classrooms. We know that every little bit counts.
Yeah, you mentioned a good point about the purchasing power of schools, right? And their budgets. And that actually is a good segue into my next question, because many schools do regularly purchase cheaper tech tools because either, funding may be a challenge, or that they just feel like spending a lot of money on something that may not last due to the wear and tear isn't worth it, and we have to remember these are the kids that are using it, especially in elementary school. I can't even tell you how many times, if a kid knows that they didn't purchase it, the care is not really always there, right? As an adult, we know how much money we, or how long it takes to earn money and how much money we spend on something. So we will make sure we try to take care of it as best we can. I don't think kids do that so often. How do you even put that, together so that schools just understand that, and figure out like, okay, you know what, we're going to spend enough money, but I also have to be responsible in that eco world. How does that balance together?
I think what's fascinating with what you said, especially around those budgets, is even when they purchase those disposable or seemingly cheaper products, these actually end up being worse, even for their intended goal of saving money. And I think that's like a really interesting starting point, where when we look at, let's look at headsets, because this was a category we recently innovated on. When we looked at the space and we sort of conducted research in this, schools were reporting on average around 31% of their headsets were being replaced every year, just straight up being replaced every year. Some schools who bought like very cheap disposable headsets, they were reporting 100% replacement every few months. So these are staggering numbers, right? But when we did the math and we said, okay, let's put this out over 3 years, they ended up spending more money, even just with their goal of saving budgets. They ended up spending more money than if they'd just gotten a quality product and sort of figured that out. So what we think about, and we sort of, have this conversation, beyond the features, beyond the values, beyond the amazing quality of the things and the features, is like, hey, start having a total cost of ownership view of these things. They're starting to do that with some of the bigger ticket items, but just apply the same lens and principle across the board. And that cost should include environmental cost, right? Not just financial cost. And as soon as you start taking a longer view of these things, it ends up being, you end up taking a stance that is better for your budgets and also the environment at the same time. And we also wanted to factor in the fact that beyond both of those elements, think about how much disruption time that exists in the classroom every time something like this breaks. And now you have to wait, you've now shipped these parts. Like there's just, it's broken at so many levels by making this very concise short-term view. And it ends up hurting your even stated goal.
Right, because the goal, right, is to have less accumulated e-waste, and have more money to spend to get the material. I can't even tell you how many times in the past, I have a media center, so I'm teaching technology. Occasionally the kids do have to use a headset. And I can't tell you how many times, a ear flap will break or, it comes apart and I have to sit there and glue it, and if it doesn't glue well after the third or fourth time, it goes in the garbage, and that's the bottom line to it, is trying to avoid those situations.
Right. And just to add, most products that are currently bought by schools and used in classrooms today, they weren't designed necessarily for the learning and teaching experience. It was made for general use for adults, most likely. And like you mentioned in the beginning, like these are products that are not fitted or made for the use cases at hand. And the kids are still developing. They're like testing their strength, they're breaking things. And testing the durability of their products much more than an adult user would with the products that they are purchasing for themselves. And so I think we believe that future products in the classroom are going to be actually designed for upgradability and repairability and really account for, the physical, mental, cognitive, and behavioral development needs of growing kids and, the use cases that they have in their classrooms.
Yeah. So let me ask you this then. So what's the difference between a product designed and produced just a few years ago versus, for the classroom specifically, versus a sustainably created product of today and even of tomorrow, looking down the line?
Yeah, I can take that. I think the interesting layer is, like as Grace mentioned around the headsets, since this was the most recent one that we did, it is really looking at those behaviors and really understanding how those behaviors translate into some of the issues that may occur in the product. So in the headset case, as Grace was mentioning, right, kids are testing out the strength. They are wanting to, as they're growing through, those are just growing elements that we've learned with our team that looks into this research. And not accounting for that is just doing disservice to the whole experience. So assuming that this product is going to be used by adults, like most products, headsets are built for adults listening to music. Assuming that as a starting point and saying, yeah, this should be fine enough for going into a classroom. That just seems like, as we were looking at this and we wanted to take on this challenge from even our own products from before, we were like, hey, we can't start with that assumption. We have to assume that these kids are going to be doing what the kids are doing and then build around those in layers.
And I could tell you from experience, that's exactly what's going on, because the kids, like I said, it's not that they don't care. I just don't think they understand. I try to teach them as best as I can how to use the equipment properly, how to take care of it, how to put it back, how to hold certain things. I don't think that's, across the board. I hope it is, but I just don't think it is. But that's exactly that misconception of looking at it from that perspective, because just to your point, a kid is not going to think that way. They're just not. They're going to think, I'm going to put it on, it might fall to the floor. I've seen, how many kids in the last week, I've seen a kid get up that was still connected to a laptop or a desktop and walk away from the computer thinking, because they forgot they were connected, and something falls and cracks, or, it happens all the time. Adults, no, that's not going to happen. But to your point, that's exactly the way it is.
And even beyond that, to what Grace was mentioning in terms of considering repairability or considering upgradability as a core part, like even outside of headsets, right? Like we have Rugged Combo 4, which is our keyboard for iPads. They're one of the big things, and we've had 4 generations of these products. So we've not only learned with external research and, listening to schools, we've had 4 generations of this product live in the world and learn from that direct feedback of like, oh yeah, okay, this broke, this happened. And one of the things we did there as well was like, we made it so that if you needed to repair or replace the parts, it's accessible, it's field repairable, so that you can do that as opposed to needing to completely toss the whole thing away. And these are some of the threads and principles we're trying to pull across our product lines.
We're talking with Grace Lee and Gaurav Bradu from Logitech Education today. Gaurav, let me ask you, how does Logitech's commitment to sustainability influence the design and the materials that are used in Logitech's educational products? And how do they stand up to some of the daily wear and tear that kids can place on them? Because, we just touched upon it a moment ago, but how does that really work?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the first things, from a sustainability standpoint that our amazing sustainability team ingrained into me that stuck is that once you've made a thing, making sure that it can actually be used and live a life for the longest amount of time is the best service that you can do to it. And so that's one of our goals is, right, hey, how long can this product have a usable life while not compromising? Like we know certain things last for a very long time are detrimental, but like making sure that we cover those bases, but then give it multiple lives. And so this starts actually with, like we said, building around those real scenarios, right? Like, and letting kids be kids and building with human behaviors in mind. So one of those things is like shoving things in and out of backpacks, tossing a backpack at the end of the day, sticky fingers from eating Cheetos, or juice boxes spilling on things, boredom that can lead to fidgeting. And from here, we like take those things and then we'll say, okay, well, how do we actually build parameters around this? So the team will then engineer these products with the right material choices and the right electromechanical designs. And then we layer in rigorous testing and redesign to meet these, and recognize those scenarios where we need to meet those. And in some cases, we'll even exceed them. So specifically, what that translates into is when we do drop testing, right, for Logitech pen, crayon, our cases, etc., we will say, okay, let's assume it's being dropped from 4 feet, from 6 feet, not just, which is, pretty high. And then for the headsets, we're like, okay, what's the most likely thing? 4 feet, you've got this around, drop it. And then we said, okay, what's the test that we can use? So we use military grade testing on the products. So it's super rigorous. Then we were like, okay, this is cool to represent the sort of fixed sides. But then we took our rugged combo and we said, okay, it needs to protect the iPad as well, while protecting itself. So we backpack tested the thing and literally dropped it 10,000 times in a backpack, because we don't, again, the goal is not to make something that under ideal conditions works. It's to say, because the kids aren't doing anything wrong. They just need to live, right? They want to be kids. So instead of like reprimanding them or having like, you need to do X, we assume the baseline. And then from there, right, like I was the official Cheetos tester in one of the products. Because, we were like, hey, will this be cleaned for Logi Pen? We needed to make sure it could be cleaned. And so then we say, okay, this needs to be super easy to clean, but then can it hold up to cleaning? So many of the materials we use will say 2,700 wipes using the standard solutions, and it still needs to last. It can't degrade beyond that. And then we do things like twist and bend testing, right? So, for example, that headset example that you gave, right? One of the things we would do is like put the headset on a chair and sort of see how it yanked if you pulled it. If you're like, oh, I just need to grab it. And so then we devised this twist test and this sort of torsion test of you're like, cool, we need to make sure that this doesn't break under those circumstances. Then we looked at some of these things which are like, how do we make parts boring, right? Like make things that are just not enticing. Now we know some, kids will get excited by these things, but in our headsets, where the cables go in and out, we intentionally made them dull. They're super easy to do, but it's a boring, experience. You wouldn't look or know to do anything with it. The way the ear pads come at the seams, it just looks like it's a continuous experience. A lot of thought goes into it, but then the parts that you do interact with, like the mic, that's orange. You can pull that mic up and down as much as you want. That's great. And then lastly, we even consider like things like human behaviors around battery life, right? So for example, with the Logitech pen, when we were looking at how that gets used, one thing we saw was these pens get taken at the end of the term, put into a drawer, and then not picked up for another 60, 80 days or however long break is, and then get charged. So we were like, hey, in the battery charging experience and the life, we needed to account for a battery that was completely depleted, not charged for or not touched for hundreds of days, and then come back and charge it, and it can't die, right? Like, so those are the things that we sort of look into, and sort of we're not trying to make up fake scenarios of like, ultimately there are numbers, you have to put them there, but we're really considering. And so when we say up to 15 days of battery life, and it'll last you for this duration, we've actually said, oh yeah, okay, 2 hours of a child on a bus, fidgeting with it throughout the day, and then it still needs to work. So those numbers really come from real scenarios and built around those human behaviors, and we're sort of building layering.
Right, because you're going from that baseline to the extreme, and if the extreme is good, then the baseline is great.
Yep.
Right. And I think teachers appreciate that, because I worry about that over the summer every year. All the laptops that I use. Is the battery going to be okay, in September when we come back, and not being on and not being charged, that whole cycle over and over. Yep. But it's true. And it's great that you're putting thought into that, because I don't think a lot of people do, and again, if you're looking at the extreme versus the just baseline, okay, it's going to get by, extreme is going to be the much better road to take in this scenario.
My engineering teams and our engineering teams are very kind to me in particular, because I will come up with devise these odd scenarios. I'd be like, what if a child is like, basically, I feel like I'm getting out my excitement in some of these situations. I'm like,
Right.
what if they hold this by the cable, swing it around? And they're like, interesting. Now, how do I translate this into a repeatable test that can be done at multiple times? So they'll be like, okay, Gaurav, we'll do this, this, and this. And I'll be like, cool, I
Yeah.
like it.
We also had like a chomper test, and we had like fake teeth like crunching on cables and things like that. We're like devising all these really unique engineering tests.
Oh boy, do kids put things in their mouth, let me tell you.
Yeah, so another weird one was actually to that point. So, we recognize that the cables, a motivated child is a motivated child, right? Like they will get through anything. But on that chomper test, right? Like we were seeing how can we just make it slightly more chew resistance and slightly better thing. So as Grace pointed out, we literally built a fake set of teeth and a jig that goes up and down to test that.
Listen, if you ever need 680 kids to test products, I have the perfect bunch for you.
Amazing. Amazing.
I touched upon this in the show's opening today, but let's get more into, because we're talking about the headsets too. We've mentioned it a couple of times. Let's get more into detail with the Zone Learn headset as an example. By the way, I am currently wearing a Zone Learn. I love the Zone Learn headset for a lot of the reasons I think we're going to talk about in a moment. How does the Logitech Zone Learn headset promote sustainability in the classrooms through those interchangeable parts, the extended warranty, which is phenomenal, and what does set it apart from competitor products?
Yeah, so when we developed the Zone Learn, we wanted to build a headset that kids would actually want to put on their heads and leave on their heads and use properly. So we know that products that young learners have a connection with and feel ownership of just means that they will take better care of it, right? It's the reason why we encourage kids to name their lunchbox so they don't disregard it or lose it. So we want to avoid landfill at all costs. And we had to start by the desirability and designing a way students can feel an emotional connection to the product before we did anything else. And, what we've learned from research also is kids really care about, how they look and the products that they use. Like even from a really young age, they have this awareness towards that. So yeah, we really paid a lot of mind to that.
And to build on that, I think one of the key elements was from taking that, ownership experience and even in our testing, one of the big nuances that we saw as we sort of even before we released the product was the number of kids that reported that they felt like this product was designed for them.
Yeah.
As opposed to, and they felt like it was theirs. So they were using those terms. We weren't like sort of feeding this. This was like 2 weeks. They were like, do I have to return it? It's like, my parents have their own version. This is mine. And then, like we mentioned previously, like we layered those behaviors around damage and sort of wear and tear and said, how do we just make everything reinforced? And then consider those elements and consider things to be modular and take that systematic approach to this that allowed for easier part replacement. This in turns allow for repair and even change of experiences and potentially even supports upgrades. So what we mean by this is the headset comes with this frame experience with the ear cups and everything there, but then you add your ear pad of choice. So you can have an on-ear experience or an over-ear experience, and you pick whatever device you're going to connect it into. Is it a 3.5 millimeter based device? Is it a USB-A based computer? Is it a USB-C based tablet? Whatnot. But by making these parts repairable, replaceable, first and foremost, you're not tossing the entire headset out. So, one of the highest breakage points, like you said, is cables. And headsets that have fixed cables, as soon as they break, you're tossing the entire headset out. And in our case, we said, no, if we're going to make this as rigorous as possible, but we know this is going to happen. This is not something that we can avoid just because of certain scenarios, like the yanking. Like there's only that much I can design a system to be yank proof. But then when that cable breaks, you just change it. Same thing with the ear pads. We know with the rubbing, putting it on and off, those ear pads are going to wear out. The next piece is the change use cases. We said, if you're going from a lab setting where you may want your kids to have on-ear ear pads because you want them to be able to listen to your instructions as well as what they're doing, and they now move to 1:1 scenarios where they need to have a more focus, more noise isolation. You're not throwing out an entire headset. The same headset supports over-ear, so you're now changing the experience as your need changes. And then lastly, one of the big things we saw is like primary device cycles around swapping an old computer. So if you had sort of desktop computers in your labs or old machines which had 3.5 millimeter jacks, and now you're, for example, upgrading to a 10th gen iPad, you should just be able to change the cable and everything else should work. So we allow for that move from an analog experience to a digital USB based experience without swapping and tossing out the entire thing. Even considering the time and effort needed to swap this, you mentioned this earlier when you were like, I was gluing these things, the earpads together. We made sure that each of these swaps is 10 seconds or less. That was like a critical goal. Like we timed ourselves to say, how quickly can someone do this?
If I'm sitting there with glue, that's out of service for at least 45 minutes to an hour.
Yep.
So I'm not using it anymore. That can't be used. And that kid now doesn't have a headset.
Yep, exactly. And then from there, like you said, right, look, we've got our extended it's a 3-year warranty on the product, plus excellent customer service. So if anything breaks that was within our manufacturing control, we should be able to replace it. But even there, if the headset breaks, we just send you the headset frame. We don't send you all the other parts. So making sure that we're only replacing the parts that need changing was a critical component. And then we layered things in beyond that. We said, hey, packaging, right? How the thing that you end up getting to your thing and you end up discarding, even something as that, we said, okay, this is bulk shipped. Schools are buying this in groups. How do we take that brown box and give it a second life? So what we did was we designed it in a way that brown box can be used in the classroom. Kids can pick it up because it's in groups of 10. There's dividers in between the headsets so that you can place the headsets there. And then we said, okay, what next? Like, what about the individual packaging of the headsets? And something we saw looking online on the forums and threads was that teachers were using Ziploc bags or resealable bags. And so instead of them taking it out of our packaging, putting it into another resealable bag, we just shipped it in a resealable bag. So with the ability to put your name on it and stuff, so that it's, again, you can see through it. So we built around the behaviors that teachers were also demonstrating and said, okay, like instead of you tossing stuff, we'll give you everything. So this will last for as long as possible in the constraints that you want. And then you can use it for storage. You can use it for, the behavior setting around your kids ultimately putting the headsets back in the classroom at the end of the lesson or whatnot. And so we wanted to contribute to that. And in doing so, it also ended up being more sustainable and ended up being better suited for these scenarios.
Right. So just in that terms, not only are you saving e-waste, but you're also not throwing out the packaging so that you're saving on regular waste or recyclables that doesn't have to go through that process now. It's actually going to be used and probably for a good couple of years at least.
Correct.
That's awesome. So Logitech has set, I find this amazing, and it's really truly one of the most remarkable things that I've heard, especially with an edtech company. But Logitech has set a significant deadline of 2025 to enhance and to also expand its sustainability efforts across its entire product portfolio, which is an amazing, ambitious goal. And it demonstrates the fact that Logitech's commitment to reducing its environmental footprint and promoting sustainability in various aspects of its operations is not just a buzzword, so to speak. So as leaders in the education technology sector, why is setting such a high bar so important, and what does it actually say to other tech companies and even just people around the world?
I mean, first and foremost, this bar that you've mentioned it's important to us, right? Like our own employees, everyone within the company. It's a commitment that's at the center of our own values. Like we talk about this as folks within the company ourselves, and we just want to do what's right by our consumers, and they can rest assured that we're making those decisions with Logitech, right? Not only will they get considered products that are well made, but they're also getting products that are sustainable. Like that's what we want to be able to do. And in education, we want to help schools understand that there are choices that are responsible technology investments that can reduce environmental impact. When schools are making sustainable tech investments, they're also setting an example for their students, their next generation. So our hope really is, we're looking inwards and like, what do we want out into the world? And we just want to live by that and make sure that we feel proud putting these things out into the world and doing our best.
Listen, I think it's an amazing goal that I not only think is achievable, but it's something that really does speak volumes. So it's just really amazing. Listen, this has been such an informative and engaging conversation to have with you guys today on such an important topic. I'm really glad that we had the time and the chance to learn more about how Logitech has asserted itself as a leader in sustainability and the environmental impacts that its products have, both now and, of course, in the future. Before we go, tell everyone where they can go to find out more about Logitech and their sustainability efforts.
So you can go to logitech.com And we have a sustainability section there where you can not only see the specifics, but we publish reports and details every year. And then each of our products, they'll have some details. So for example, the Zone Learn will actually detail those things out. We'll say this product in particular has 22% post-consumer recycled plastics. All our products are carbon neutral with regulations in mind. They're for your VOCs and paint. So products will have these details as well as our core web pages and materials that are coming out.
That's great. Well, listen, for those of you who have been listening, thank you for tuning in today. And make sure that you share what you've learned or any takeaways or reflections that you've had. And make sure you tag us on Twitter at Class Dynamics or Instagram at Classroom Dynamics Podcast. We always look forward to hearing your thoughts on our episodes and sharing the different ways in which you're using what you've learned. You can also help support Classroom Dynamics with as little as $3 a month at classroomdynamicspodcast.buzzsprout.com. Once again, I'd like to thank Grace Lee and Gaurav Bradu from Logitech Education for joining us today on Classroom Dynamics. It has been such a pleasure having you with us today to talk about such an important issue that certainly affects each and every one of us, from the little ones all the way up to the adults. So thank you very much for taking the time and joining us to talk all about it today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
And that brings us to the end of this episode of Classroom Dynamics, where knowledge and inspiration meets innovation. I hope you've enjoyed today's discussion and found it both insightful and uplifting. As always, my goal is to provide you with practical strategies, engaging stories, and powerful insights that can fuel your motivation as an educator. I believe that when knowledge and inspiration do come together, incredible things can happen in your classroom. And for all of you who may feel that it's too late to strengthen your craft, I challenge you to make it your mission to do so. You've worked hard to get to where you are today, and it's never too late to infuse new life into your work. So why not make today that day to do so? I'm Adam Todd, and you've been listening to Classroom Dynamics, a teacher podcast. You can follow Classroom Dynamics on X at Class Dynamics or on Instagram at Classroom Dynamics Podcast. If you haven't already, go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And if you know a teacher who may benefit from today's show, please share it with them. We'll be back soon with more captivating conversations, inspiring stories, and strategies that you can implement into your everyday routines. Until then, keep igniting that spark in your classroom and never stop believing in the incredible impact you have as an educator. You're more powerful and inspirational than you think. If you like this episode, you'll enjoy our sit down with Dr. Michelle Neustadt, a dynamic educator and senior director of STEM learning design for BrainPop Science, as she walks us through the importance of science and STEM education. Unlike traditional textbook learning, BrainPop Science elevates middle school science education with student-driven investigations, engineering projects, and interactive activities like simulations and 3D worlds. It challenges students to gather information, explain phenomena, and express ideas through writing, fostering a deeper understanding of the material.
And then our learners are the doers. So they need to engage with all of our interactive resources. So we have simulations, data manipulatives that have real world data sets from like NOAA and NASA. We have related readings and primary source materials. And throughout all of this, learners answer questions. They also make observations.